It's episode 119 of the Improv London podcast. I'm your host, Stuart Moses, and this week's guest is Jason Perez.
Hello!
Let's get started. Tell me about the Edinburgh International Improv Festival 2019. What's that all about?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've created this festival, as you said. It's called the Edinburgh International Improv Festival. And yeah, its inaugural year is going to be 2019. It's going to be February 7th through the 10th in Edinburgh. And it's going to be the first ever improv festival in Scotland.
Wow.
And yeah, so really excited about that. And we've already announced 3 of our main teachers. We're going to be announcing our 4th one shortly. So far, we have Colleen Doyle and Jason Schatz, who, of course, are a part of the amazing 2-person group Dummy. And then we also have John Murray, who is famous for being in groups like Death by Ruru, and also the amazing UCB Herald team Bastion as well. And he also has a really cool podcast as well that I'm going to plug called Bosscast, in which he goes through how important Bruce Springsteen has been in his life and everything of that nature. But yes.
I happen to be a big Bruce Springsteen fan, so I will be checking that out. I had a friend.
Oh yes, please do.
I had a friend at university who was absolutely obsessed with Springsteen, and it rubbed off on me. So I will be checking that out. So thanks for the recommendation. Do carry on.
Yeah, of course. So we have those 3 people so far as our main headlining teachers. As I said, we're going to be still announcing 1 more. And also our applications for this are closing at the end of this month. So they're closing on the 31st. So everyone has about 9 days left to still apply. We're running our applications through the Improv Network, which you could check out at theimprovnetwork.org, which is a awesome site. I don't know if you're on it, actually, but it's an awesome site that has...
I tried to log in.
I will say, it could be a little finicky. If you have applied and you haven't got an email yet, I will say check your spam folders, because that's where most of those emails that you haven't received have gone. But yeah, it's an awesome site that is pretty much has over 100 different improv festivals from around the world. Most of them, of course, being in the States. But now, of course, you have the Edinburgh one. You have a couple in Amsterdam, a couple in Sweden as well on there. So yeah, that's how we're having people apply for the festival. But if you've also have any questions and you want to get a hold of us, and that's me or Michelle, who is the executive producer for this festival. I honestly could not be doing any of this if it wasn't for her. Email us at contact@edimprovfest.com. So edimprovfest.com. And we're happy to answer any of your questions. But one of the cool things that we're also doing with this festival is not only do we have team submissions that are so for teams to submit from anywhere around the world, but we also are doing this special thing that's become kind of popular back in the States called ensemble submissions as well, in which people from around the world that either don't have a team currently that wants to travel out to Edinburgh, or just find it too expensive to be able to travel with the team, can apply just as a single rider, and they'll be put on a team with other ensemble submissions, and they'll get a 30-minute performance spot, as well as a special coaching session with a coach to soon be announced as well. So, yeah.
Yeah, sounds great.
Yeah, so those are some little tasty treats, but yeah, this festival especially because obviously I don't know if you could tell from my accent, I'm not from
not from Scotland.
I'm not from. Yeah, I'm not from Scotland, and so because I'm not from Scotland and my experiences with the American improv scene, I'm running this festival from more of an American improv festival sort of point of view and a way of shaping it in comparison to a lot of people might have experience with the Fringe or with other improv fests, whether it's Birmingham or anything of that nature, that runs things slightly different than we do. So yeah, it's more of being able to get together with a bunch of like-minded people that all love this art form, doing a bunch of workshops during the daytime, shows at nighttime, and yeah, it's going to be jam-packed and a lot of fun. So,
yeah. No, that sounds great. Well, I would encourage people to get involved and come along and apply and all that sort of stuff.
Oh, thank you so much.
That's all right. So let's go back in time and let's explore your improv origin story. How did you first discover improv?
Okay, so I honestly started doing it when I was a child. So I started when I was like 6 or 7 years old, and at that time I grew up outside of Los Angeles, and I was doing like film and television auditions, things of that nature. I'd recently gotten an agent, and one of my agents suggested to my mom that I go to this like acting class that happened on Saturdays in LA. And half of the class was reading in front of a different casting director each week, and then the other half was an improv show.
Oh wow!
And of course, it was a bunch of children, so it was utter garbage. It was honestly terrible. Like, looking back on the shit that we did, it was horrible short form. And I do, like, most of what I do now is long form, but I have a very, very warm spot in my heart for short form. And especially when it's done well. But looking back on that, it's just embarrassing just thinking some of the shit that we would put up on stage. And I have to thank my mother from the bottom of my heart, because she would drive me to this every week, and she would watch these stupid, horrible shows and be such a supportive mother. But yeah, so I started doing it there. And because of where I grew up in the LA area, as I got older, I had Comedy Sports LA there. And for those of you who don't know, Comedy Sports it's a competitive short form improv. And so I had Comedy Sports LA, and at my high school they had a Comedy Sports team as well. And so I would see improv all the time, and it surrounded me. And at that time, all I knew of was short form improv. And to me, that's all it ever was. And I fell in love with that. I fell in love with the showmanship aspect, especially of what Comedy Sports did, especially what the referees in the show did. I cared more about what they did than what the actual improvisers would do. And I just fell in love with this idea of how to not only do improv, but do a legit show while doing it. And so, yeah, then I went down to college in San Diego and joined the National Comedy Theater, which is the same thing as Comedy Sports. It used to be the same thing, and then there's a split, which we could talk about the war of short form between James Bailey and Gary Kramer that took place in Southern California. But I don't know how many people would actually be interested in listening to that. But yeah, a lot of lawsuits incurred.
Maybe we'll talk about that in the pub rather than on a podcast.
So joined National Comedy Theater, and then from there saw my first ever long form show, and it was an ASCAT at UCB, and it changed my life. I saw it was during there's a improv festival called the College Improv Tournament that was created by Jonathan Pitts, and I went up with a college improv group, and we performed at the festival. And then, we all went over to see ASCAT, and it was one of the most, groundbreaking things I ever saw. And so I just fell in love more so and decided that's what I want to do for the rest of my life. So, yeah.
Wow. but improv has occasionally got you into trouble, such as being kicked out of university. How did that happen?
Okay. So, it sounds more ominous than it sounds more ominous than it actually was. So I went to a very strict private Christian university down in San Diego. At the time, I used to be religious. I'm fucking not anymore. But still, love to everyone who supported me when I was younger because they were good people. But yeah, I'm just not really religious anymore. And so I was at this university, and it's like when I say religious, like we weren't allowed to dance on campus.
Wow!
Like it was straight up footless. Like it was footless rules. And there's actually it's always cool seeing the people that come out there, because there's another amazing improviser from the LA scene named Ali Beardsley, who also came up with sort of the same background that I did of being raised very religious and then being like, whoa, what the fuck is going on here? Like, there's a lot of things that you guys are against that we are for. Like, like I would say honestly, like for me, like the whole treatment of homosexuality at the school was a big was probably the thing that caused me to lose my faith in religion. Right. But so I went to this school, and while I was there, I went there originally to get a degree in business, because as I said earlier, I grew up doing film and television. And my mom, all the time when like taking me to stuff, would always be like, okay, now see those people over there that you just worked on that set with, like they're struggling, like they're barely making ends meet. Do you want to be like one of those people? And I was like, God, you're right, Mom. Like I don't. I want to have a real job. And so I had some scholarship opportunities to go elsewhere to do like performing arts stuff, but I was like, nah, I'm gonna get a real job. So I went to Point Loma, and I went there for a business degree. And my first day of school, I walk in, and the guy's like, I'm not going to teach you anything. You're going to teach yourselves. And I was like, this is bullshit. So I immediately changed my degree to psychology instead, and finished off with psychology. But while I was there, I was like, this is stupid. I don't enjoy this at all. Also, our university was on the beach, and I surfed a lot at the time. And so it was a 5-minute walk from my dorm room to the water. And so it was like, why go to class when you could just surf all the time? But also at this time is when I joined National Comedy Theater and saw ASCAD and all that stuff. And so I was like, oh my God, this is what I want to do with the rest of my life. And nothing here at Point Loma is giving me anything to do that. So I just would kind of stop going to class. My mom's probably watching this and is probably going to be pissed off hearing me talk about this right now. But so I kind of just stopped going. Like, I'd still go to class every once in a while, but I was also driving up to LA, which was a 2-hour drive one way with no traffic.
Wow.
About every other day, every 3 days, to either go take a class at UCB or to go see shows at UCB or anything of that nature. And so I was always gone, and then I'd be coming back home. Like, I'd drive up just to see Cage Match at 11 p.m. and then immediately afterwards drive back down to San Diego, get back in at about 1 o'clock, go to bed, and then I was supposed to wake up for a class the next morning. And of course I wouldn't. I would just stay in bed and be like, it's all right, I'll get the next one. And then my grades literally plummeted. And I met with the vice provost, and they're like, okay, well, we got to kick you out. And so I got kicked out for a day, and due to technicality, I got back in the very next day. And I was like, lesson learned. Never going to do that again. But of course, lesson wasn't learned. The very next semester, I just kept on doing the same thing and got kicked out like for a good year. That time went to a JC. I was homeless for a while.
Really?
My improv coach at the time, Marina Mastros, who now is an improviser in LA. She used to be used to run the diversity program at Iowa West before that closed. But she's an amazing person. Honestly, everything that has happened in my life due to improv comes always back to her. She's my everything in the improv world. But like she like put me on her couch, like she gave me a place to live, like I was homeless for a while, and because I was dating a girl in San Diego, so I was like, I don't want to leave San Diego, but I still want to keep on doing improv in LA, and I don't want to live with my mom right now, so I guess I'll just sleep out of my car and do all that stuff. But yeah, so got my grades back together, got back into uni, and graduated, and I haven't done anything with my psychology degree since. So.
Well, maybe not deliberately. Maybe of
course. Like, there's so many things when playing characters and things of that nature where I'll think about stuff from a psychological point of view and be like, okay, yeah, absolutely. Like, let's play it as if this character had this sort of disorder or this way of thinking or anything of that nature, just to give it a little bit more richness and a little bit more fun. But yeah.
There are lots of things in my life that I realised in retrospect that they were preparation for improv. So all sorts of things. All sorts of times in my life where I thought I was wasting my time, and actually it turned out to be preparation for improv. So that was a lucky.
Yeah. Of course, and I will also. I will also say, because I did leave out this part as well, is during this period where I got kicked out of uni, I also was introduced to the TV show One Tree Hill.
Oh, right.
Have you ever heard of it?
Yeah.
Starring Chad Michael Murray. Well, I got introduced to that, and I kind of fell in love with it, and I just started binging it all the time.
Right.
And so that's another reason why I stopped going to class, was literally so I could binge One Tree Hill. Ladies, I'm a well-rounded individual.
But now you're in Edinburgh? You in Edinburgh?
Yeah, I'm in Edinburgh. Yeah, so actually I just moved to Edinburgh. I was living in Glasgow before. Oh, right. I don't want to throw my Glaswegians under the bus because I do love Glasgow so much. But yeah, I just moved to Edinburgh, and the place I moved into has a cat named Gustavo, who is the cutest freaking thing in the world, and is keeping me out of depression, which is very nice. Yes. So I moved out here to Scotland, and probably at the most opportune time due to the shit show that is my country right now. And not to really say that here's any better right now, but
you'll notice I'm not criticising anyone.
Yeah, but yeah, at the same time, you guys don't have a fiery trash bin that molests people as your leader right now. So who knows?
I mean, maybe we're ahead on points, but still not anything to brag about. And you're
exactly.
So you're currently performing with a couple of groups with Couch. Have I said that right?
So Couch. Couch is an awesome team. It's three of us currently. It's Martin and Hannah, who are this cute couple up here in Glasgow, who I just happened to luck into coming out here, and they're like, hey, come guest with us, and I came guesting a show with them. They're like, hey, do you want to stick around and play with us forever? And I was like, yeah, hell yeah, let's do that. But yeah, so they're an awesome team based out of Glasgow, and they run a Herald Night out here.
All right, cool.
On the first Tuesday of every month at Blackfriars Pub, which is really fucking awesome. And it's also, I will say, it was kind of weird coming out here and to see the only long form show that was happening in Glasgow when I first got out here to just be a Herald Night. Just because to me, it was such an interesting, weird way to introduce the community and audience base to long form as the Herald, which I think might be the most or like inaccessible format that there might be for audiences.
I have
yeah.
So I was just going to say, I've been quoted on here as not being a fan of the Herald. I think it's a training tool.
No,
fine. But when I see a group and I go, hello, we're going to do a Herald, I'm like, oh, good. Not saying all Heralds are bad, but many of them are.
I completely agree. The Herald is. There's a reason why. Theaters like Free Association and UCB really take so much time to focus on the Herald, because the Herald truly does teach everything that you need in improv in one format, and it's true. It's a brilliant fucking format for that. But I do agree that the amount of teams that do Heralds to the amount of teams that do Heralds well, there's a large gap.
Yeah.
But at the same time, when it's done well, I think it could be some of the best fucking improv that you'll see. I do truly believe that, but you do have to see it done well. Of course, I like to think that our team is doing it well, but who knows? We could be a pile of shit. But of course, you see teams out there back in the States. You'd see teams like Bangarang, or you'd see Arts and Athletics when they used to be a Herald team, or even teams like Bastion, which John Murray used to be a part of. And just every night, it didn't matter what night it was, but you go and see Bangarang do a Herald, you walked away being like, oh my god, that's what we should all be aiming for every single show that we do. But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, that's my feeling on the Herald.
Yeah, and I would agree. And if it's a good show, actually, it doesn't really matter what format it is. I just think there are so many different formats you could be doing. There's a little bit of a barrier for me where I'm like, oh, okay, so we're doing a Herald. Okay, fair enough. Whereas there are lots of other things you could also be doing as well. So that's,
Yeah. And honestly, I think that's formats in general, and I think it's two things. Billy Merritt recently, who's a great teacher from back in the States, recently wrote a post, and I'm gonna paraphrase this horribly, but he wrote a post pretty much being like, when you first start learning the Herald, you're like, Jesus Christ, this is the hardest thing in the world, and then all of a sudden you learn it for a while and you're like, oh, this is the greatest thing ever. I want to always do a Herald. The Herald's the best. And then after a while you hit this point where you're like, ugh, the Herald's the worst. It's so restrictive. I hate it. It's blah, blah. And then you hit this final stage where it's like, oh, if you're finding it restrictive, you're not doing it right. It shouldn't be restrictive at all. It should actually be a very freeing, but it's not until you hit that very last level. It's almost like this level of enlightenment that leaves you being like, oh shit, oh, this is wonderful. This is such a fun thing to be playing right now. But as I was saying about forms a second ago, sorry, I also have terrible ADHD. So as I was saying about forms a second ago is that I think every form, it tends to be restrictive. We all get in this sense as improvisers, and I think especially younger or earlier improvisers really get into this thing where they start seeing formats and they're like, oh my god, I want to learn this format. No, I want to learn this format. No, I want to learn that. This format, if I create my own format, it's going to break the world of improv and stuff of that nature, which I love. I love that idea, that mindset from young improvisers, because it does push people that have been doing it longer to try new things and to be like, okay, sure, why the fuck not? Let's see how well this goes, or see how big it fails. But yeah, I feel like a lot of times we get stuck in this thing where the format will save us. If we do a good format, we'll do a good show. It's like, no. Stop thinking about the format. If you do good improv, you'll have a good show. Yeah. And then once you're doing good improv, then we can place any format we want on top of that good improv, and you'll be doing the best show of your life. Yeah. Yeah, I don't.
Yep. No.
Yep.
No, I agree. You're also performing with the Cutting Room.
Yeah, so the Cutting Room is a awesome team that's an Edinburgh-based team. We did a full run at the Fringe this past year. It was my first Fringe, and
All right.
did it kick the shit out of me. I somehow decided to do 70 performances in 24 days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In retrospect, you can see where the problem was with that.
But the Cutting Room's a fun team, and pretty much the whole idea of it is that it's just purely cut twos. And so the only edit you could do is a cut to, and it takes you in weird places.
That's
and
interesting.
You end up doing weird shit with it. But yeah, it was started by Peter Aitchison and Gregor, and it's and I'm sure there's some other people as well, but they were gone before I even got there. So it's a really fun show that's done by a bunch of cool people that I've been blessed to be able to perform with here and there, which is really nice.
I mean, that's a really interesting format that I haven't heard of before. I could sort of talk through the sort of, how the show works. Do you ask for a suggestion at the beginning? Where does always cutting to something take you?
So it was actually interesting because with this Fringe run that we did, because I guess in Fringes past they'd always had just like a rotating list of guests. So it was different people every night, and so there really was no set thing that they ended up actually creating from it. They'd always be different all the time, which is an awesome way to do it. But when I came in to be a part of it with this Fringe, I was like, let's really try to focus on try to get the same cast as much as possible. And then on top of that, like, let's really try to take this format to a new level and see how it works best, how it doesn't work, things of that nature. So show starts. After warming up the audience a little bit, we get a one-word suggestion. And I would always ask for, this is just me personally, I always ask for a one-word suggestion that is not a food or an animal. But that's just because...
No, that's brilliant. Yeah, I feel like really, really good. Yes, because otherwise, that's what you get.
Yeah, exactly. And also I feel like that it's what audiences always pull, and I feel like it's something, not that there's something wrong with getting the same suggestion multiple times, because obviously as an improviser you should be able to pull as much as you possibly can from that. But like it always, when you start making people think outside the box, you start getting really weird, really cool suggestions that you're like, oh, that's awesome, I've never actually played to that idea before. So ladies and gentlemen, if you got one tip from me today, only ask for suggestions that aren't food or animals.
No, that's really good.
So we get a suggestion, and what we ended up finding out actually ended up being the most fun was our first 3 scenes that we do. We sort of do almost Herald-like, in that each scene is taking whatever that word means to you and pulling out into 3 completely different ideas, 3 completely different mindsets that really don't have that much carryover or crossover with them. Because what would happen is, because it's an hour-long show, so if you start having everything be related right at the top, by the time you hit the 30-minute mark or even the 40-minute mark, you're losing steam. You're losing so much gas because you really haven't let your world go as big as it really should at the top. So you really want to let that world get as big as possible towards the top. Figure out what all those funny things are that you're going to hit, all those fun games that you might play, might come back to. And then after you go wide, you start bringing it in more and more and more and more. And it just gets quicker and quicker with your cut-tos and everything of that nature. So you're cutting to different characters, you're cutting to different ideas, different scenarios. Sometimes you'll follow a story, and then after you've followed a story for some time, sort of like a slacker, you might all of a sudden jump to something completely different, or something of that nature. It ended up being a very fun show to do, and we ended up getting great audiences for it during the Fringe as well, which was awesome.
That sounds great. And you also run the Kinky Fish Improv Jam. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so that's another thing that I was approached by a gentleman by the name of John Carstairs, and my amazing executive producer for the festival, who is his significant other, Michelle Mackay. She has a last name. So they approached me, and another really great improviser in our scene named Jill, who's a part of an all-female troupe called the Tinderellas.
Ah, yes,
and
I know them.
they came to us with this idea of like, hey, there isn't that much jam sort of nights going on, and the jam night that had been running in Edinburgh was kind of being taken away from the scene, and so they're like, we kind of want to do something here. And so originally their idea was to do a short form night, and I was like, that's fine and all, but honestly the only way that I'm going to be a part of this is if we run this as a long form jam night. I have no problem with short form jams, but with the way that the improv scene is currently moving and just how we're moving as an art form, long form is really what we should be focusing more on. And so yeah, we pretty much designed this night. So the first hour is a workshop. The second hour is a bring your own team jam. So if you have a team that just wants a little bit of time, you bring your team, sign up on a slot. You get about anywhere from 8 to 15 minutes, depending on how many teams show up. And then the last hour is an open long form jam in which pull names out of a hat, put them onto teams of about 6 people. And with one of us hosts always being on one of the teams just to help make sure everyone is a part of it and guide them along the way. Mm-hmm. And and it's a free night that we do out here, which it's a bucket at the end if anyone feels so inclined to give back to help us run it, but you don't have to. But yeah, it's a really fun night. It's something that we all felt like this scene really needed, and it's been taken to very positively by the scene, which is always awesome to see. And yeah, doing a lot of fun things with that, which is, and we've been having guest teachers also come up. Like we had Phil Whelan from Grand Theft Improv come up, and we also recently had Josh Simpson and Jake Jabor, who do the Meet Improv podcast back in LA, and who are also both phenomenal teachers. If anyone is in LA that's listening to this, please take them as teachers, because I cannot talk more highly about these two. But yeah, especially, and if also you see Josh, give him a little hug, because the Milwaukee Brewers got beat by the LA Dodgers. And he's really sad about that right now. So yeah, we get a lot of cool teachers coming up. Same thing with the Glasgow Herald Night. Martin, who's on Couch with me and runs Glasgow Herald Night, also has started a Glasgow improv jam as well.
Oh, wow.
And so he's been getting a lot of cool teachers coming over here as well from there. So we have Alan Starzinski, who is a great improviser from both New York. I think he recently moved out to LA, but I think that's newer. He wasn't there when I was in LA. But yeah, he's coming out here to teach some cool stuff as well. So yeah, we're always excited to bring over some big names and have them help out and things of that nature. So
wow, that sounds great. You also teach yourself. You teach. You don't teach yourself. Maybe you teach yourself. You know what I mean. You have also been teaching. You also teach. Yeah, I've been teaching for 9 years now. And yeah, absolutely, I love it. Honestly, teaching is I honestly sometimes enjoy more than performing. Really? But yeah, honestly, like there's my mom always said I should go to school for teaching. I never wanted to, but it seems like she was right, and I should have listened to her. As seems to be many life lessons from my mom that I can look back on. But I absolutely love it. And so teaching, one of the things that I wanted to do out here that there really wasn't that much of before was really a structured class system here in Scotland, and eventually have it
culminate with the final class, and then have house teams be formed out of those final classes to really push people to not just want to take classes, but have something to shoot for as well. So that way it continues to build the scene and things of that nature. I have a question for you, actually, because
I'm terrible at answering questions, but I will do my best.
So this was something that was interesting to me. Now, back in the States, the idea of having coaches for teams is very common. In fact, almost every indie team or every practice group has a coach. But I noticed that in Scotland, like that was a very foreign idea to people in Scotland. Is that something that all indie teams or long-form groups have coaches, or seeking out coaches, or what's it like down there for you guys?
I think it's pretty commonplace.
Okay.
I think so. I'm just trying to think of my experiences of being on teams. Sometimes members of the team will take it in turns to act as a coach, or if they've been along to a class, they'll bring back what they've learnt from the class and share it with the rest of the team. But I'm really a big fan of having an external voice come in.
Yes.
Because I'm really...
Yes,
I just if there are going to be notes, then you want it from an external person. You don't want to be noting each other. That's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, I am a big proponent of not having people coach their own teams, because that gets really dicey. There are a few occasions where you all understand, or like, okay, we all are on the same footing, we all respect each other and everything of that nature. But it's the moment that you're on a team where some people feel like they know more than others, and all of a sudden they start giving. It becomes a very dangerous situation that is not healthy for teams. Okay.
So, when you're teaching, what is the most common note that you give?
God, what is the most common note that I give? I could probably one of my students is right now in the other room. I could probably yell at him and have him tell me what it is that I always tell him. I don't know. I feel like so often it's a lot of the same things. Just a common note that I give is just like fight like you love, not like you hate. Because which I honestly think is so important, because so often, especially with newer improvisers, we get in these situations where we're doing a scene and all of a sudden there becomes an argument situation, and it's just, oh, okay. Thank you. My student just commented on this, saying, "Oh, that's true." My main other thing is, what's the game?
Okay.
Is that is something that, because especially with my UCB background and everything of that nature, I do teach very heavily from a game point of view. But but also just because when people get in these bickering situations, they just bicker like it's like, fuck you, like why would you do this to me? It's like, whoa, stop. Like, no, if you love that person, like you aren't telling them off because you want to never see them again. You're telling them off because something that they did hurt you so much. And the reason why you're so mad is because this person that loves you hurt you so much. Yes. And so you still might be fiery, but in the end you still want a reason to you aren't breaking up with them right now. And sure, there are those scenes where it's like, no, get out of there. Like there will be scenes where I'm like, why are you still here right now? Yeah. This person is obviously a sociopath. Get out of the room, figure out any way to get out of this scene. But most of the time that's not the case. And when it's not the case, it's like, no, figure out a reason why we still love each other. Yeah. And I'm not saying we should always come to a middle ground of like, oh, I want you to do this, you want me to do this, let's find the middle ground. No, because that always ends up leading to sort of lukewarm improv. But figure out a way of still having strong point of view, but loving each other in the end. I don't know. That's something that or also just the other one I'll give is just like, why are we in a blank white box right now? Because I was just like, give me something. Like, you know where you are. Like, when you came out here, you had an idea for something. And if you didn't have an idea for something, that's fine. At least build something around you, so then something will come of that. At least the people around you and the people backstage and the people that are watching from the back line can be like, oh, great, I know where they are right now. So at least if I know where they are and I'm on the back line, I might not be able to help them just with their 2 characters, but I can at least scene paint around them and continue adding on things to truly make this environment be something beautiful and actually entertaining to watch, instead of just two people just talking heads at each other, blah, 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 back and forth, which is boring, as we know. But yeah, those are probably some of the most common.
Those are all great notes. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem.
Do you find you learn well from an improv books? And if so, do you have a favourite improv book that you would recommend to the listeners? I personally, yes and no. There are some books that are written for, like, so as I said, I have really bad ADHD. So for me, reading is actually really painful, in the sense that it takes me, for most books, it'll take me 6 times reading a page to actually grasp what I read without my mind going anywhere. So by the time I get anywhere into a book, I'm like, I have no idea what I've read, and I'm just so frustrated that I just want to give up and stop trying. And so books aren't always the best for me. However, Will Hines' book, which came out last year, How to Be the Greatest Improviser in the World. God, I hope I didn't get that title wrong. I might have butchered that. But I think that is a phenomenal book. I really do. And I think that improvisers everywhere should check out that book. Because first off, Will Hines is an absolute genius. I love the way he plays, and the way he teaches is just as good as the way he plays. Yeah, he's just a genius and a madman. I love him. So yes, How to Be the Greatest Improviser on Earth. But I had to look that up.
Thank you.
But yes, I agree. That's a really, really great book. Cool.
Yeah, it's and like I will say, like, of course, I will always push the UCB handbook on people. I'll be like, just read this, especially when it comes to like me having to teach people game and stuff of that nature out here, where there isn't that many examples of that out here. It's like, look at this, or even another teaching tool I always show people when I'm like, this is how you do, like, when I start teaching just like the game and long form and stuff of that nature, is I make everyone watch the Upright Citizens Brigade ASCAT, the one that has both the regular video and then there's also the audio commentary that you can watch as well of the same thing. I don't have you watched that? Okay, yeah. So I always push all my students to watch both of those, because first off, you get a sense of, okay, this is what this is. And then afterwards, with the audio commentary, you have Matt Besser, Matt Walsh, and Ian Roberts breaking down different game moves, things that they're looking at, things that they're hearing, things that they're pulling from the story, which is all really great things to hear. And so that way it's not just me and my stupid face just telling my students, hey, do this. And they're like, well, why should we do that? I'm like, well, these smart guys over here say to do it as well, so shut the fuck up.
If someone was to step on stage with you, what could they do to delight you?
What can they do to delight me? Honestly, one of the things that always delights me is super emotional improv. Yes. I love, so it's so weird. Even though I still love, I still will always think from a game standpoint, and I love playing game. I miss doing like really just like emotional and sometimes even just dark improv of things that it was so fun actually. I can't remember his name, but he's a teacher from Second City, Toronto, and he showed up at our Kinky Fish Improv Jam the other night, and we were just talking, and I was like, oh, cool, you teach at Second State. I was like, for this Bring Your Own Team Jam, do you want to just do a 2-person set with me? And he's like, I'm really tired, I'm jet lagged. I'm like, come on, please, like, just give me this right now. And he's like, okay, fine. And he played with such from such an emotional standpoint, and we did this whole thing about this kid who had some sort of just like emotional disorder based on the fact that his mom had died and the hard time he was having from that. Wow. And me playing his father, just trying to show him that I still loved him. And even though I had started dating already, it had nothing to do with me not caring about his mother dying. It was more of the fact that I didn't know how to survive, and I didn't know how to do this on my own without her anymore. And so just playing this super emotional, super grounded scene. But then, of course, and this is what I always teach, is like, if you play things real, the funny things are going to happen. And when those funny things happen, they're going to be so much stronger. So actually, my intro course that I always teach for long form out here is called No Need to Be Funny. Because one of my biggest pet peeves from when I was teaching back in the States, or even just taking classes as well, was you would have these intro classes that would just become dick measuring contests of who's the funniest person in the room. And because everyone's trying to be the funniest person in the room, we actually lose sight of how to do good improv, which is what we should be learning in those intro courses. And so, and that's why in my intro course that I always teach, I'm always like, let's stop. We're not going to focus on comedy at all. We're literally just going to focus on doing something that is grounded, something that has a point of view, something that is strong. And you know what? If we go dark, great. I have no problem with that. If we need to work through stuff right now, cool, awesome. I'm all on board with that. But I tell everyone, I'm like, watch this scene. And if you guys stay true to yourselves in this scene, you're going to have some of the biggest laughs that you're going to possibly get while doing this class. And of course, it always works out that way. They play things true and funny things come up, and they realize when playing something true and that funny thing comes up, how easy it is to spot. And they're like, okay, cool. Now we know what that is. Let's hold on to that. Let's keep on doing more fun, grounded stuff. And then we can also throw this game in there anytime we like as well. Yeah. But yeah.
No, yeah.
But that was the longest-winded response to
no, it's good.
to
it's good.
What I like to see. But yeah, I love to see emotionally grounded and just some super emotional, super dark improv. I think that's why like one of my favorite improvisers to ever watch is Jason Mantzoukas, who is an absolute delight because he. Like, don't get me wrong, he could go off on the crazy train very easily, but he also plays things so real. But he also plays things so beautifully dark that you could just I could watch him improvise for 5 hours straight, and I think it would be the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. But yeah,
cool. What's the most embarrassing thing that's happened to you when improvising?
So my two most embarrassing things come from doing short form. So while I was with National Comedy Theater, there's a game that Comedy Sports and National Comedy Theater do in particular that's called Five Things, which is a guessing game. And I think this, and I teach this when I teach my short form class, is I think it's the only game that if played right, an audience could walk in, see your show, you could have the worst show of your life, but if you do a good game of Five Things, they will walk out saying that was the greatest show I've ever seen. It's honestly that strong of a fucking game. But so in the game, you have a person who's guessing different activities, and then activities are taken, you remove parts of the activities and replace them with random things. So for example, I'll just give an example right now. Say we got an activity is basketball, and so the team that he's playing against is not a team. Who is it? It's the Incredible Hulk, and instead of the basketball, it's not a basketball, it's Jello flavored, it's lemon flavored Jello. Cool, awesome. So my job as a clue giver is to show this to the guesser by using pantomime and gibberish. And so the reason why I said both the Hulk and Jell-O was because those are my two examples of the most embarrassing things I've ever done. So the most embarrassing one was I had to show this improviser, Gavin Bowen, the replacement of Jell-O. And so I was not raised on Jell-O at all. Like that, I never ate Jell-O, or I found Jell-O to be very disgusting, and so I never ate Jell-O. But Jell-O was one of the most common suggestions that we would get in improv. Yeah, and that's why we would always get something to be flavored as when we would get Jell-O, just to make it harder for us. But yeah, like every city has their thing. Like back in my hometown, it was Costco. In San Diego, it was Jell-O. Skydiving was another very common one that we would always get as well. Spatula was another common one that I would get. Spatula's very common here too,
with spatulas.
Yeah, because people they're like, ooh, I'm so unique. I can say clever words. But because we had gotten so often, I'd seen other improvisers playing this game make Jell-O. And so what I would always see so what I did was I took out the bowl, I took the packet, I opened the packet, I put some water into the bowl, I poured the packet in, I stirred it, and then I would always see them put the Jell-O in somewhere and then look at their watch to time it. To me, there's only one reason why you would ever time something, and that's because you put it in the oven. So I pantomime the oven. I put the Jell-O in. I close the oven. I time it. I take it out, and I'm like blah, 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 like with that. And it was one of those moments where the audience, like, literally, I've never seen an audience take one person's side more so in my life. That Gavin Bowen, who was the naive person here, he had no idea what was going on. He literally was like, "You're trying to show me Jell-O, but you're a fucking idiot who doesn't know how to do it correctly." So in gibberish, he then showed me how to correctly make Jell-O and was like, "Get that oven out of here, put it in the fridge," and the audience was like everyone turned on me. Like, it was one of the most embarrassing, but one of the most brilliant things I've ever experienced and seen happen in a show, where the naive person became the clue giver to the person who actually knew what was going on. And then my other embarrassing one was we got the change of Hulk, and I was wearing my black dress pants and my black shirt and my tie, and I went to Hulk smash on the stage, and when I Hulk smashed, just like the Hulk in real life, I ripped my pants in half, and I had to do the rest of that fucking game, actually the rest of that show, with a giant split down my pants, and I was wearing briefs at the time as well, so my junk is just being perfectly fucking framed, and so yeah, those are probably two of the most embarrassing things that have happened to me. Well, actually, okay, I do have one other. This was one of my darkest moments of improv, and this actually happened during the Fringe. And if any of these people are listening, they know exactly what I'm about to talk about. So, were you up here by chance for the Fringe this year?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, do you know the venue Barbados?
No, I don't think I made it there. No.
So Barbados is on the Cowgate. It's across the street from Espionage. But Barbados is literally, and I'm not joking when I say this, it looks like a crack den. You have a bar on the first level, and then you have to walk into this back room, and then take these cracked in stairs up a couple floors to actually get to where your space is. You walk out there, it's as you have rebar still sticking out of the walls. The walls didn't even go all the way up to the ceiling, so if anyone was outside your room and talking, you heard everything on stage. If there was, for example, the committee was performing at this location, and the committee had to deal with the shittiness of performing on the floor just above the bar. So the music and the bass is literally just rattling the entire room while they're trying to do this amazing long form set. You know how the committee is. Like they're doing like legit, like organic style edited long form, and they're having to deal with this bullshit that's taking you out of what you're watching and everything of that nature. But so there was no real lights in the room. They just had lamps set up as your lights. And when we first started our run, we did a month-long run with Couch called Improv Cage Match at Barbados. And one of the nights, we only had one lamp that was working. And we're like, okay, here we go. So we're doing this, and the group before us is doing an improvised movie. And it's a bunch of members that are usually on our house team, but they're doing their own thing for this night as our guest. And the light goes out about halfway through their set. And they're doing the movie, which is a very physical and very visual format. And so the audience is like, what the fuck is going on? Half of the audience is leaving, and then we're like, okay, cool. Let's. So we're talking with our house team that night, and we're like, you know what? Lights are out. Let's do what we should do. Let's do a bat. Why not? Let's do a fucking Herald in the Dark right now. So we do a bat, and and the audience was not on board.
Oh no!
They were like, as you said, half of the audience already left, and this audience wasn't on board. And so me and another member went out and sat in the audience. So we were literally like surrounding them while doing this. And none of us were really listening to each other or anything of that nature. Like, none of us were just like, we weren't doing the best improv. The audience wasn't on board. And there was three girls that were sitting right behind us. And one of the girls, I overheard her say to her other friend of like, why are we wasting our time with this right now? And I died inside. It was one of the first moments that I was like, that I literally questioned my existence and why I do this art form. And it was one of the hardest things. But someone quickly told me, is like, hey, this is what the Fringe is.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. We had an absolute shit night tonight. But guess what? Tomorrow night, we're going to have a great show. And sure enough, the next night we fucking killed. Yeah. And everything that happened that night before never will happen again. But still deep down inside, I'm like, someone saw improv for the first time that night and walked away being like, that's what improv is. And now I'm stuck here knowing I just ruined that person's experience, which breaks my heart. It absolutely breaks my heart. And it was very embarrassing for me. But yeah, so those were some fun things and a very depressing thing that embarrassed the shit out of me. But don't give up to anyone that's listening.
Yes.
Don't give up on your dreams.
Yes, that's a good message. Okay, so big final question, and then we'll talk about the Edinburgh International Improv Festival again. Big final question is, what's your signature move? What do you do that is your go-to, that you bring down the house, you save the day? They go, classic Jason.
Fuck. Honestly, I don't know. I honestly don't know. Like, I will say, like, when it comes to group games during the Herald and stuff like that, there is a very specific group game that I love to do every Herald. And it's called News Conference. And it's, or press conference, and it's just everyone goes out into the audience and just starts drilling this supposed straight man that is fielding questions based on a topic that you've given them, based on something from the opening, and just really fucking drilling them until they break somehow, and it goes into mayhem. But it's such a fun group game, and I absolutely love doing it. I will say that is something that, like, I'm like, okay, this Herald needs some life right now. let's play this game right now. That I would say that's maybe my go-to, and probably my reporter that I always play when I do it with, like, it's the same fucking voice that I do for this reporter every time. Like, I always like slip into that character, which is kind of just a Charlie Day-esque, like Always Sunny in Philadelphia type voice character, which is just like, question here. Like that kind of annoying piece of shit voice. But yeah, I don't know. A note that I used to get a lot when I was going through classes and things of that nature was stop falling in love with all your opposite scene partners. Right. I think I did it almost to a fault.
Right.
When I was like earlier in my career, was I'd just be like, oh well, we shouldn't be fighting, so instead I'm just going to confess love to the other person at some random point. Like, we could be doing anything, and I'd be like, hey, I love you. And I remember at the time, this was when I was, this was at Second City, and I remember coach at the time, who's Mark Warzeka, was like, stop. He was like, Jason, for this scene, I want you to tell this person off and get the fuck out of here. And I was like, okay, Mark, sure. You know what? If that's what you want, that's what I'll give you right now. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I really have a go-to. I love playing film noir, like detective type characters. Well,
that's lucky, considering how often film noir comes up as a suggestion. You're very lucky that you enjoy doing it.
I also did a 2-person show every blue moon with an amazing improviser named Will Name, who's a part of the group. Spontaneous players who do Spontaneous Potter and MC Hammersmith, all that shit. Yes. But we do an improvised 2-man film noir called Grits and Grammar. He's obviously Grammar, I'm obviously Grits, And yeah, like film noir is one of my favorite things. So anytime I have a chance to play a film noir style, like Private Eye Detective, I will jump on that in a heartbeat. But no, I don't know if I have like something in my pocket where I'm like, oh, this show's going bad right now. Let me get out this old dollar bill. Do you have that thing?
So I suppose it's just having an emotional reaction. It's just choosing something and having an emotional reaction to it, and actually just trying to deepen rather than widen. So it doesn't really matter what it is, but I would just focus on that one thing and try and get us just to talk about that one thing and have an emotional reaction to it.
So in the way you're continuing the was the word that I'm looking for. So you're once you figure out what the why is, you're like, you keep on looking at the why instead of then asking if this is true, what else is true, and really widening that thing and playing that thing more. Or
so I'm not very good at if this is true, what else is true. I've recognised it's really useful thing to do, but I've kind of struggled to do that. So if I'm having a poor show or a poor scene, it tends to be because we've got like a million ideas and we haven't focused on anything in particular. So what I try and do is I try and play an emotion. I have an emotional reaction. I try and make it as truthful as I can, and I just try and focus on one thing and make the scene about that thing. And then once we've got that focus, then we can start bringing other things in. But if there's just like 100 ideas around, we don't know what's the important idea. I think that's probably what I try and do.
Okay, cool. So you like to take over the manager role. You like to be like, hey guys, like you fucks, calm down right now, okay? Well, Papa's gonna get us figured out on one thing here, and this is what it is. Okay, cool.
Yeah, no, I like the way you describe that. Yes. Cool. Right, let's briefly talk about the Edinburgh International Improv Festival again. And for those that weren't watching at the beginning, what do people need to know? What can they do now?
Yeah, so Edinburgh International Improv Festival is going to be February 7th through the 10th. It's taking place at the Scottish Storytelling Centre and also Assembly Roxy. And it's in Edinburgh, and we already have announced 3 of our amazing teachers, which are going to be Dummy, which is Colleen Doyle and Jason Schatz, and also John Murray, who is famous from such teams as Death by Root and also Bastion, as well as he's also one of the writers, or plays one of the writers on 30 Rock.
Wow.
As well. Yeah, so he's a great guy. So yeah, we're gonna have 3 of them. Also, we still need to announce another one. So keep your ears and eyes peeled for that shit, folks. But yeah, we have submissions currently open. They're ending in 9 days. They end on the 31st. So get your submissions in. You're doing submissions. If you want to go to our website, which is edimprovfest.com, you could click on the application link there, and that'll take you to the Improv Network. Or you could just go to the Improv Network. I believe it's theimprovnetwork.org. And apply there. For people that are applying, if you're like, hey, I haven't got my email confirmation yet, go to your spam folders. There's a good chance it's in there. If not, email Bill Bender. He's going to listen to this and be like, please stop telling people. But yeah, email Bill Bender because he's the tech man who is getting more and more frustrated by me every day. But yeah, go there, apply. So we're taking right now a couple submissions, one of which is team submissions, which is quite explanatory. It's how we all usually do festivals. But then the other one is the fun thing that we're doing called ensemble submissions. So if you want to come up here or come out here or come over to here, and you don't have a team that wants to come with you, or it's too expensive for you to bring an entire team with you, you could apply as a single writer. And as a single writer, you are put on a team with 7 other people. You are going to do a 30-minute set and at the festival on Sunday. And then last but not least, you're also going to get coached by a guest teacher who we will also be announcing, hopefully very soon, if they will get back to me and sign an effing contract. So that's going on that front. Honestly, we're so excited about this festival. We're really excited to show the world what Scotland has to offer in improv, but also at the same time have the world show us what they're doing as well. If you do short form, long form, medium form, musical improv, anything, submit. Honestly, we're looking at a little bit of everything. We've had teams already submit that do improv with robots. So that's fucking mind-blowing. I didn't realize that was a thing. As well as we've had musical improv teams. We've had a murder mystery team submit as well. We've had tons of submissions, so please submit. We want to see everything. We want to get a wide variety of talent there. I will say we are a little bit more long-form sided than short form, but we're still definitely going to have short form improv going on at the festival, so don't be afraid to apply because of that. Also, one last thing, if you could go on Facebook and Twitter and like us and follow us on those things, we'd greatly appreciate it, because we want to hear from you and we want you guys to hear us. I promise not to spam you guys too much.
Brilliant.
But I don't know. I think that's about it.
Fantastic. The last thing for me to do is to say thank you for being a guest on the Improv London podcast. Yay!
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for having me in London. This is so beautiful.
Cheers. Bye.
Cheers, mate. Bye.
I made this.
That's improv!